Welcome to C105, Streaming Deployment Architectures in Higher Education. My name is Chris Knowlton, and I'll be the moderator for this panel. We have a fine set of panelists with us today from higher education, and we're going to start off by just having them each introduce themselves quickly and tell us a little bit about what they do at their various universities. So let's start with you, John.
My name is Jonathan Schwartz. I'm with the USC Sol Price School of Public Policy. We actually have an in-house video services department, so my department is responsible for creating marketing campaigns, promotional videos to help further the school's reach through digital video, like faculty bios, spotlights on our things, event capture, live streaming, and then just for fun, they've also put lecture capture and distance learning in my shop as well.
I'm Ernie Gillis. I'm Learning Resources Web Development Manager at Berklee College of Music. I look after a lot of web development, but I also manage the streaming content for class materials and online reserve materials, and I collaborate with video services and other areas in the campus for live events and on-demand stuff. So.
My name is Todd Stabley. I'm a senior media engineer at Duke University, and I work in a group called Media Technologies, which is in Duke's central IT shop. And I manage our media capture and distribution services. Those primarily come in the form of two services that I'll just talk about today called Duke Capture and Duke Stream. And I've been at Duke and in my current role for 8 years.
I'm Siddiq from UC Riverside. I work for computing and communications, so it's central IT, but my subgroup within CNC is specific to classroom and instructional technology. So anything that has to do with instruction is what my group started out doing, so lecture capture, but we've branched out into doing things like special events. So anything video and it's related to campus, it's probably going through me, unfortunately.
For better or worse, huh?
For better or worse. There's only one of me, and a lot of people are wanting to do a lot of things with video these days, so
right.
I get pulled every which way.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, what I've asked these guys to do is to describe to us a little bit about their streaming media usage scenarios on campus and the infrastructure that they've deployed. And then some of them will actually have slides. Actually, all of them, I think, are going to have some slides and show us sort of at a high level how their university has deployed streaming media across campus. Since there are some areas which, from their descriptions, they'll know certain areas better than others, but at least at a high level, they'll be able to tell us if there's a single plan that they use, a single infrastructure, or if it's a bunch of different systems, and we'll be able to talk a little bit about each of those. So, John, let's start with you, and I'll bring up your slides if you'd like.
Oh, sure, great. So basically, USC's usage of video, we do online degrees, which are usually managed by outside vendors. We have lecture capture rooms using MediaSite, Adobe Connect, Panopto, whatever. They're usually managed by each of the school's individual IT department. And then we're also, of course, a YouTube iTunes U partner for marketing, recruitment, event archives, USC-specific videos, live streaming, and embedding a video on our website for marketing purposes. The biggest thing I think at USC is that, next slide, is that we are very decentralized. There is no central approach to video at USC. We have a centralized video communication director who's pretty much responsible for coordinating high-level videos that involve the fundraising campaign for the university as a whole, our marketing campaign, the president's office, anything that, VIPs. But for the most part, it's the individual school's responsibility for all events that are not managed by central, which includes, lecture capture, event capture. And for event capture or streaming or content creation, it tends to fall into one of two models. One is either the department will outsource it, which is primarily what most departments on campus do, or in my department's case, we're very lucky we have a small team of usually 1 to 3 staff members that will kind of coordinate all video and streaming as necessary for the individual department. Next slide, I guess. So basically, we captured, since Chris asked us to kind of tailor this more towards streaming and event capture, I have 2 quick scenarios. One is the more asynchronous traditional route, where basically we will just have a camera that records an SD card. We go into Avid through an AMA workflow linked to the media. We output to H.264 using a hardware accelerator or Sorensen Squeeze. And then we output to YouTube, Vimeo, or iTunes U as appropriate. This is more of the offline asynchronous capture where we can have some time in the edit room after the event. When it comes to streaming, I guess the next slide, we have put together a fairly robust but cost-effective solution, because the biggest problem we have is we don't have the resources to hire an outside company that will charge us between $2,000 and $3,000 just to have a streaming event that doesn't count filming costs, We don't want to buy a Stratocaster for 8, 9, 10 grand plus, even the new Mini coming out for around the 7 grand price point. So we put together a streaming solution that also allows you to master in HD after the event. So basically what we do is we have our first camera is plugged directly in via HDMI or SDI to a Blackmagic Intensity capture card, which can either be USB 3 or Thunderbolt. If we have multiple cameras, we will set up a second camera that will go via HDMI into a Teradata cube. Both sources, whether using the Blackmagic or the Teradata cube, will go into a MacBook Pro running Wirecast 5 Pro. The Pro is important, not the 5 standard edition. The Teradata cubes go in by either Ethernet, do a gigabit Ethernet on campus, or we do an ad hoc Wi-Fi, so that way we're not jumping onto the USC's already overtasked Wi-Fi network. And then this goes in by, like I said, Thunderbolt or USB. We then have the ability to feed a second screen for like overflow room via HDMI right at the program output of Wirecast. And then of course we then have Wirecast to have 2 additional outputs. One is 720p H.264 over Ethernet to go to our CDN, which is Ustream. And then Ustream will give us a flash-capable file after the event, which we can publish immediately to YouTube for post-event viewing, because we don't want to keep people on Ustream, we want to keep on USC marketed sites. The other thing, and then what we do is sometimes things happen in live stream, we have screw-ups, or this bit rate is only like 1 or 2 MIPS. So what we do then is we also take another output through USB or Thunderbolt to another Blackmagic Intensity card, which will give us the switched full-res HD master of the event in ProRes 422 or Avid DNX HD. It'll also output in a QuickTime MOV file, so it's fast editing. You can throw it right into your NLE, and that'll come out. So Wirecast sends that program feed to this via HDMI or SDI to a Blackmagic Hyperdeck shuttle, which records on a solid-state drive. And then we have basically a multi-gigabyte, full high-res, 30p or 60p, whatever we're filming in, file that we can then edit in Avid if we need to, and then upload to YouTube if we want to make minor changes to the presentation, like maybe a lower third was incorrect, or we want to cut out some dead space. But the basic thing in this scenario is that we can stream in real time very cost effectively, and then we have the HD master immediately after the event to make changes post after the event. And this whole solution, I think you can build for, depending on how robust your MacBook Pro is, 2,000, 2,500, somewhere in that range, maybe even a little bit less if you go through B&H and an educational contract. So it keeps our streaming costs low, and we can do multiple camera, which is unique to a low-cost streaming solution.
So in that price, though, does that I'm guessing that doesn't include cameras or anything else? It's just...
I'm sorry, correct. It's not including cameras. We're assuming here that you already have a camera infrastructure to film whatever you do. This is purely the streaming side.
Basically Blackmagic to Blackmagic?
Yes, Blackmagic to Wirecast, to MacBook Pro with Wirecast Pro, the Teradata Cube, another Blackmagic, and then Recorder. So all this right here on this side of the slide. Okay. Somewhere around the $2,500 range, depending on your price discounts.
And do you have multiple sets?
Right now we have 2, but the second one does not have the ability to go to the Blackmagic Recorder to have the HD master of the switched event, because that one's also used for lecture capture, so we use Adobe Connect. So basically we have followed the same kind of scenario. We have a camera, obviously a much more lesser quality camera, kind of like a little Panasonic, small camera like this, that goes into Blackmagic, but then this has got Adobe Connect on it. Okay. So we can do the same thing with Adobe Connect, so we have multiple kits.
Got it. Okay, great, thank you. Yeah. All right, Ernie, let's go to you.
So my content tends to break down into what kind of use case we're looking for, and obviously I don't know which button.
Top button.
Top one. Obviously on-demand broadcast, client recording, or telecommunication. So once those use cases are broken down, we try to figure out, well, what our audience is, because public has different content access versus classroom content access for IP purposes, meaning intellectual property as opposed to internet packet. So based upon this kind of access, obviously on-demand classroom use, like I say, is going to be very different than for public access, because students should have access to certain content in the classroom that people don't want to have access publicly. Broadcast, there is a variance between public access or intranet or campus only. And then for client recording, student submissions, faculty reviews, and broadcast recording, that also gets into privacy and certain things like that. So all of those kind of use cases kind of break down. And then on the next slide, I have a showing of how that breaks down as far as technologies. For a long time, the campus was using YouTube, and we still use YouTube for a lot of things. My area was specifically moving over into doing Wowza more so with the on-demand and our broadcast. And for the client recording, it goes into different things. Kaltura, which I know is a Wowza front end, I guess, or a front end tool Wowza product. They use that more for the student recording and the faculty submissions in the learning management systems. And telecommunications, people have, Berkeley uses a Google platform, so people have tended to go onto the Google Hangout and Skype and GoToMeeting. And then we have open source solutions for things that would use our Internet to high bandwidth dark fiber connection. So on the next slide, you'll start to see how very similar to what Jonathan has. The setup is pretty much the same. You have your cameras, goes into a switcher, connects into an encoder, which is on the computer. For mine, I have a hardware switcher purely to allow for picture-in-picture capability, very live. And I also record into the cameras, and I have an external recorder to do the switcher. And then on the encoder, I actually have an extra recorder that records extra backups. And then on the computer, it's a Mac Mini as opposed to a laptop, which is actually more cost effective, I guess, for a lot of people because it's $500 for it.
Right.
And that has Wirecast Pro as well. And then I have another recorder. The Wirecast is recording to DVR locally, and I'm doing DVR on Wowza systems and broadcast at the same time. So I have copies of copies of copies everywhere, because nothing ever goes wrong in technology.
That's right. Well, it's good to have the backup or the archive all the way along the path. So
exactly.
in case any of them goes down, you still have a master.
Right, because I'll tend to work with other departments that will request the production assets for whatever kind of sound bite or video bite, and they don't want the switched versions or whatever, and
right.
So their own kind of mastering. And on the last slide, it's our open source solution, which is a little more problematic to set up, but this is giving us 110 megabits up and 110 megabits down for video and audio encoding, so that we can actually do synchronous performance up to 800 miles apart between campuses. So you can have, most recently I had a three-piece rhythm section in Boston and a two-piece horn section and a piano player in Pennsylvania, and we were performing in sync. Now, it doesn't do HD, it's RGB, but that's purely so that it's as fast as possible as far as latency, so you get down to less than 30 milliseconds latency up to 800 miles apart. So, and that's, the previous slide, it's mainly, just so you know, we have about a dozen to 15 venues on campus and about 20 different recording studios. And this setup is portable from my office, and then we have installed areas that are very, very similar with just different encoders and go to different setups.
How do you move this around? Is it on a cart? Or
I have a drum cart.
Okay.
It's literally just a dolly that we load everything on and move it around. And same with the Internet 2 setup. It's also portable, and we just patch it into whatever network jack we need to.
Okay. Very cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
So at Duke, we don't try to dictate what any individual schools and departments and programs use for a video strategy, and there are a variety of tools that are being used, in different places. But we did begin a concerted effort to centralize our services, really kind of going back to 2004, which was the year that we handed out iPods to all the freshmen that year. And it was an experimental program, and it really kind of underscored the need to kind of promote, programmatically create academic content that the students could use on those devices in order to make that investment worthwhile and to build on that work, even though that was just a one-year program.
Right.
So that led to a number of things. It led to the creation of this program here called the Duke Digital Initiative, and that's really kind of an incubator project for a lot of innovative video-based projects for the curriculum. It led to the creation of the group that I'm a part of, which is called Media Technologies, which is a central service for Duke. And it led to these two services that I told you I've been involved with, Duke Capture and Duke Stream. Duke Capture is a central class recording service, and as of now, it's got about 94 classrooms that are set up to do automated scheduled recording. And there's software, as well for Mac and PC that people can create recordings, on those mobile systems and upload it to the same platform, and we're using Panopto now. We've been using Panopto for about 4 years, and before that we were using a tool called Lectopia, which was developed at a university in Australia and was acquired by Echo 360, and so we used them for 4 years. And then DukeStream is really kind of a self-service media publishing system, and in the old days that was really just 4 standalone streaming servers, real QuickTime, Windows Media, and Flash. And we're in the process of completely revamping that service because it's just not tenable anymore in the age of YouTube to ask people to publish, at least faculty and students, with these manual processes that involve knowing code. And it's got to be as easy as YouTube because that's what they're used to. And in fact, we do have really big traction with our YouTube channel, which is set up like a lot of universities do, where there's the umbrella Duke channel. And that along with iTunes U is really for public content, things that you want a lot of eyeballs on. DukeStream and Duke Capture are really more for course content. But so we really need the system to be easy to use, and we've been looking for a tool to fill that need for a long, long time, and we feel like we finally found one. We're about to roll it out in January. It's called WarpWire. And we had looked at a lot of tools. A lot of companies, Fortune 500 companies, were kind of tailoring large, complex systems from industry, down for education, and they were expensive and had tools like monetization that we didn't really need. We were talking about that earlier. Really, we just needed to do some simple things. I'll have a chance to talk about this a little bit later, so I'm not going to go into depth about it now, but really just has to be easy to use and integrate seamlessly with our identity management systems. We use Wowza Media Server, and that's going to be the only one of those 4 platforms that's going to remain, and we use that for our live broadcasting that happens centrally. Panopto also does live broadcasting, but really we use Wowza for most of that. Actually, another niche for Wowza now is we're doing a lot of reflecting of IP camera broadcasts off of the Wowza server because there's a lot of those that are kind of being set up in different places. There's one at the Marine Lab, one at the main plaza on campus, and they only have the capacity to deliver so many streams, and so we reflect those off of Wowza, and then we can kind of get that extra capacity. And then finally, we use Kaltura specifically within the context of Sakai to publish video. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. And are you going to go through the WarpWire workflow later?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Great, thank you. Siddiq?
Yeah.
Let me jump ahead, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, my UCR, it's not showing the UCR.
Oh, what happened?
scene.
Yeah, your logo's
it's
missing.
okay. I went to the trouble of going to the style guide, downloading the official UCR background and all that. But anyway, so there is no central strategy on campus at this time. Everyone's sort of doing their own thing. But I guess they fall under those 4 large categories. So I'll start from the bottom here. The PR group on campus is unrelated to the group I work with. It's called Strategic Communications. So they do all the videos that have to do with bringing money into campus, highlighting alums, VIPs, people who've done things for the community. They are using YouTube for the delivery. So they are a separate group. They shoot everything, edit everything, and upload it to YouTube. And they have their own channel. It's the official UCR channel, but there are a few official UCR channels. Each college has their own channel as well. I'm more on the instructional side, so we do more lecture capture and instructional videos. So for lecture capture, we're using a mixture of MediaSite and Podcast Producer. Podcast Producer, we started using it when Mac OS 10.5 came out, and back then it was all back-end intensive coding to make anything work, but it started becoming more popular. So we have about a dozen classrooms equipped with Mac Minis that we can record content in, and we have another dozen classes with media sites that will record content as well. Those are our 2 main lecture capture solutions. There's also, if you're a faculty member and you have a special event in your classroom, or you have someone coming in for a guest speaker, we'll record that, process that, and use Wowza. So I guess you can say we're using mostly Wowza for video on demand that's not even related to lecture capture. For lecture capture, it's all Apple Podcast Producer or all MediaSite. As far as events, my group also does special events. So commencements, large speakers that come to campus, and we do it both live and on demand. So for live, we're using Edgecast as our CDN. We used to use QuickTime Streaming Server initially because athletics used to broadcast all their games on QuickTime Streaming Server before they went into, I think they're called Big 10 or something. Anyway, they joined some group where all the games have to be on cable TV. So they handed off the QuickTime streaming server to us, which we used to use for streaming live events, until it got to the point where even on a 100 meg switch, we could only support about 400 or 500 live viewers because it was unicast, and we were getting more viewers than that. And at that point, we decided, we need an actual streaming service provider, and that's when we went to Edgecast, and we've been using them for, I think, since 2007 or so. And that's just for live. Once the event is over, we actually move the recorded video onto Wowza and use that because Edgecast charged for storage. We also started using MediaSite recently for live events. The nice thing about MediaSite is you can accept both data and video. So previously, when we were doing live events, I would switch with a video switcher or do picture-in-picture of video and then data, either insert the PowerPoint slide or a PowerPoint with an insert of the video. But MediaSite lets the viewer, as you pick what you want to watch. So you can minimize one, maximize the other, and that is, I guess, it's also platform agnostic for the most part. And then we're using MediaSite for that. Academic, the other thing that's sort of the new buzzword, I guess you can say, is called flipped classrooms. I don't know if any of you, if you're in the education business, is where faculty have content pre-recorded for their students to view ahead of class. So when they come to class, they're not teaching material, they're discussing material the students have already viewed. And we're using a wide variety of ways to record it, but in the end it's being served through Wowza. So be it a faculty member being recorded in a studio, they're short 10, 15-minute videos that we will record, edit, and put up on the streaming server. And that is is accessed through iLearn, so Blackboard. Blackboard is our LMS system, so pretty much if it's academic or instructional, it's being served up through a Blackboard. If it's events or public relations, it's on the main campus website. And right now, we have 2 instances of Wowza. One faces out, so if you go to the main campus website, for instance, and you view a video, it's coming through the outward-facing Wowza. It's open to everybody. The one that's facing inside is limited to access through campus applications, so you have to be authenticated. That way, students can get access to protected content. I'll give you a sample of that in the next slide. I guess this is a high-level overview of what we're doing, and I can talk you through any one of those. But one thing in particular that I think we're doing that's different from other campuses is we have a large library of movies. So if you're in a class that requires you to watch a movie, the library actually used to put physical media on reserve, where you would go to the library, check out a DVD, watch it, and then write about it. We started a pilot a few months ago where we're actually digitizing a lot of the movies. So these are full-on movies, Hollywood movies, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, what have you. And we're putting those in the protected Wowza server. UCLA was either sued or in some suit where they were doing the same thing. They had their entire library online, and the end result was they could do it as long as you do it for a limited amount of time and to a protected audience. So it falls under fair use. So what we're doing is we're digitizing the media library, DVDs, VHS, 16mm film, what have you, put it on the Wowza server, and it's made accessible to students who are in that class for a set amount of time. So I'm in class, I need to watch a movie, so it's made available to me from Friday evening until Sunday evening. So it shows up on Blackboard for that amount of time. It's served up in Wowza, so it's Flash, so 95% of the students can't download it. That's the other reason we're using Wowza, is if it was HTML5 or MPEG-4, they can download it. Yes, you can download it, you can screen capture it, but we can't stop the 5% who really want to do it because there's ways. You can get programs like RTMP dump or what have you, and they will let you grab the stream straight off the Wowza server. Right. But the fact that we have it on a Wowza server that's only answering requests from campus IP blocks, and it's only served up to a select group of students. So if you're in a class about world history, you're only going to see that movie for those 3 or 4 days, and then the link is gone. So it's not like you can copy that link, send it to your friend, because they need to be authenticated. That gets us around copyright issues. And so far, no one's raised a stink about it. And this is a decision that was made up high. I'm the guy who just presses the button and makes it happen. So I'm hoping when the DMCA notices come, if they ever come, they won't come to me. They'll go to somebody else. But a quick workflow of what we're doing. It doesn't matter what my source file is. It can be a video that I recorded of a special event, or a commencement, or faculty members bringing me files. Faculty members also have a lot of files that they want to show, and they used to upload them directly into the LMS, which the tech side didn't really like because it tied up the LMS server with a lot of content, and it was all progressive download. So if Sunday night when the homework's due, you get 300-400 students hitting the server trying to view this one file, and caused a lot of traffic issues with the campus learning management system. So anytime the tech side, the learning management team finds faculty uploading videos, they bounce them to me. The faculty send the videos to me, I upload it to Wowza and send them the embed code. They can place that in the Wowza server. So that's, what ends up. If it's instructional or academic related and it's video, somebody somewhere will bounce it to me and I upload it to Wowza and it's served up.
Cool. Okay. Thanks. I should have asked at the beginning, how many of you are actually in higher education?
Awesome.
Okay. And how many of you are familiar with the flipped classroom? Okay. All right. So not a new concept for most of you. Excellent. All right. One thing that I didn't specifically ask, I guess, but some of you actually went ahead to, was talking about architectures or workflows for specific things that you own. Todd, maybe it was only yours that we kind of skipped over. Should I go back to that?
Oh, yeah.
To talk about that? Because I think you were the one person who kind of kept going, who waited on that. So let's do that now. Just talk about the WarpWire workflow.
Yeah, so this tool we're really excited about because it's solving a problem that we've had for quite a while. Number one, how do we make it really easy to publish video at Duke, just like YouTube? And then the security thing. In fact, e-streaming reserves, we're calling, digitizing our library archive of films is one use case for that. So it has to be able to integrate with our authentication system, and it has to be super easy. With WarpWire, you create your content however you're going to create it on, professional camera, your own personal camera, even an iPhone. We have an organization called Duke Media Services, which is kind of a for-hire, professional shop on campus that a lot of people use. Once you have your video, you'll upload it into the WarpWire interface, which you can see here. It uses responsive design, so it's going to scale to the same interface for mobile as for desktop, and this is the iPhone version of it. If it were bigger, it would have 2 columns, and the text would be, more full. You can see, for instance, the add button there in the upper right. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Do you want to point to it?
Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, right here is the add button that'll say add media once it scales out. Here you can see all the videos that have been uploaded already into this collection. So we're looking at, I think this is a music course. And you have the ability to click and play this and expand it within the window, any of these individual videos that are part of that collection. You can click the Add Media button to browse, just like in YouTube, and upload a video, and it'll process and encode and populate down here when it's done into this list of videos. You can move up, to manage all of your media. If you have other collections that you manage, you can move media from collection to collection. And so this little ellipses button next to a media object and also to a collection will kind of expose this share interface. And I can't actually read all this text from here, but basically the idea is that you can get a secure link to the video that will take you to a page with that single video or that collection already embedded. You can get YouTube-style embed code to be able to embed the video, in a web page. And then this button, I think the third one down, is share with users and groups. And this is the key part, that does security for us. So you can say, I want, just these 3 Duke NetID holders to be able to see this videos, and you can explicitly say those. But we've also got a system called Grouper that manages groups of people at Duke, groups of these NetID holders. And that could be a course group coming from the registrar's office, so it could be all the people enrolled in Music, 143. There are dynamic groups that are kind of also programmatic that define, say, all faculty at the law school or all staff, at the Fuqua School of Business, and you can specify these groups, and you can specify groups in combination with users, so you can really kind of customize, how you're going to share this video or this collection out with people.
Tom, where do the groups get defined? Is it Active Directory or Blackboard or in WarpWire itself?
These are drawing from our identity management system involves multiple tools, and so we use Shibboleth, and we use a tool called Grouper for managing the groups.
Okay.
And we do have an LDAP directory, which is where these searches happen for individual users in WarpWire. So once you've shared that video, so here are two examples of what you can do with it. This one is showing the video inside Sakai, which is how we're currently using Kaltura. It works the same way, where there's a specific LTI integration. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the LTI standard, but it's just a way of making tools work within the Sakai framework or other LMSs. And so you basically can expose a little widget for WarpWire that will allow you to get this interface for your collection when you're logged into a particular course and be able to put the video in there and have it populate with this thumbnail. I wanted to say a little bit about how WarpWire has implemented the security, and that's that before you've authenticated, you're going to see a blurred poster frame for the video and this little lock icon. And once you click on that, you'll be taken to our shibboleth page where you authenticate, and then it will take you back and unblur the poster frame, and then the lock icon becomes a play icon. And down at the bottom, we're looking at this video is embedded in a WordPress site for Duke. And you could just as easily put that in a personal web page or anywhere. And that was one of the core requirements for WarpWire. Is we were talking with a lot of different companies, even some of the really big ones, they couldn't implement, and we're calling this asset level security. So you could take this particular asset and you could put it anywhere and it will honor the restrictions. It's not just that you're going to some portal that a lot of these systems use where you have to log into that portal and then you can see the video. You could put this anywhere and it will function the same way.
Interesting. And so maybe I missed it. Is it custom built, or is there a product on the market that other people can buy like this?
Well, we kind of got lucky in this regard because there's a team of local programmers who live in Durham, which is where Duke is, and they had built a tool. I'm not sure if some of you in education have heard called VoiceThread, which is like a video annotation tool where you can kind of create a video and then other people can upload another video or an audio clip surrounding that video and create kind of this dialogue. And that was really popular and successful at Duke. And so these guys had sold that product and were moving on looking for another idea, and we had told them, we had brought them in to tell us, I think they had some idea for a live broadcasting solution that they were thinking about. And that wasn't of particular interest to us then, but we told them about this problem that we're trying to solve with Duke Stream. And I guess something piqued their interest because they basically just started to develop it for us, and they're really kind of developing it based on our specs in hopes that it will have viability elsewhere also. So.
Right. Very cool. Okay, so it might be available at some point for
it
other
will be
folks.
available. Yeah, they're definitely at the point where it's being commercialized.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, let's go to some other questions. And you've each described various workflows and things. You're obviously investing a lot of time and sometimes a lot of money into creating these workflows that protect your content and get students and educators the content they need where they need it. How do you know if it's actually being successful? Who wants to go first? How do you measure your success? How do you say, I have a positive return on investment in what I'm doing?
My main area also contains the college library, so we're all about circulation stats. That's the way that we're landlocked, so we're a fixed footprint. So if a book doesn't circulate, well, you take the book out, put another book in. And so we do the same thing for all of our streaming content. Part of the workflow that they mentioned of the on-demand and reserves, that also goes through my whole domain. And we have a CD collection, for instance, of 40,000 CDs, so music school, that kind of thing.
Right.
For live broadcasts and event capturing and things like that, it's the same thing. We monitor our stats. I just updated to the Wowza streaming engine, which has a really nice interface now for doing all the monitoring of stuff, which I thank Wowza for doing that. That was awesome. Because prior to that, it was always reading through log files, which I never liked. Mm-hmm. So doing that, watching the live stats, checking our web logs for authentication, and just tracking all of the virtual circulation, if you will, of the statistics. And that's our big analytics to tell us how successful it is or isn't of how content is going. So.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
I think for us, it's a combination of different tools to say that we're being successful for RI. When it comes to lecture capture and video conferencing and LMS integration, my big mandate is, can we do it anywhere, any place? So like that solution I mentioned earlier, it's a mobile solution with Adobe Connect. So even if we don't have a traditional capture room with MediaSite and the whole 9 yards, we can roll into any classroom that's got Wi-Fi or internet connection and broadcast a class. So that's one measure of success. Can we do lecture capture, distance learning, asynchronous or synchronous anywhere in the university?
Okay.
So in the lecture capture, that's that. When it comes to ROI for event capture and live streaming and that kind of stuff, it comes down to, can I show an increase in viewership analytics for YouTube, because YouTube is our primary distribution mechanism, obviously. So for example, we've grown, I've been at USC in this position now for just over 3 years, and we went from, you know, I remember, just like the other guys, we have a main USC channel, and we have a sub-channel for just our school. So I managed that based on that. We started with like 100 subscribers, we're over to 900.
Okay.
So you know that's as long as we grow every year, that's where I can show that in viewership and retention.
How large is the school? What is the maximum possible market size that you have for subscribers?
We can go. Oh, I'm sorry. Maximum what?
Like market size. Effectively, you have a fixed number of folks that could be subscribers, right?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, we're kind of a niche market with public policy and urban planning, so I guess you would say anyone who's interested in those kind of subject matter would be our market size.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be within the school, just anybody who's interested in those topics?
Right,
okay.
Right. So you know, we're not interested in getting schools. We actually my aim is actually to get people who are engaged with us, like other schools, other policy schools, because our big thing is that we are the 6th or 7th ranked school of public policy in the nation. So we want to engage with that audience and that consistency. So as long as we can show that we have viewership, demographics from all over, you know, are people from other universities commenting on our videos, those kind of stats prove our ROI on the YouTube side. And then on the live streaming side, I think it's traditional analytics. You know, we happen to use Ustream, although recently after meeting Chris, I am good checking out Wowza. But the big thing is, can we show that we had, when it comes to our live stream events, can we show that we had a number of viewers, but more consistently, how long did they watch the stream? You know, how long did they engage with the stream, and their concurrent, concurrent usage. So we did an event, for example, a couple weeks ago, and we had 300 concurrent users that lasted for all 6 hours of the event.
Wow.
So that was that was an important analytic for us. So really, it comes down to retention and viewership. And then we do not as much as these guys, I don't think, but when it comes to faculty, we do a little bit of digitization you do for videos and for faculty. And I think for that, just can we be flexible? Can faculty walk into my office and say, hey, I need this for my class, and can we integrate into LMS? And we happen to use Vimeo, and we put it so it can only be watched from a USC.edu IP address, just like you guys. But we just use Vimeo because it's easier. So Vimeo becomes like our protective media server, YouTube our public, and then Ustream our live stream. So for us, we're engaging our audience, and that's basically our big thing.
Okay, great, thanks. Todd, Siddiq?
I guess on the academic side, I can't really speak to ROI because again, my group is very focused on the academic side, but I can echo the same things for the streaming of movies, for instance. The more and more faculty coming to me with DVD saying, I want to stream this, sometimes they come the same day and expect it to be uploaded within the next hour. I got a nice chunky iMac for that, but it's not a tangible thing that you can measure, but the fact that I'm getting more and more faculty coming to me saying, we want to stream these movies, to the fact where now I have to bounce them to the library because the library set up another station where they say, if I can't take this workload anymore, so I just say, please go to the library will encode the videos, upload them to Wowzer for you. And for live events, it's the same thing. If we have, our biggest event for live viewers is commencements. We have, I think, 7 or 8 commencements, and we get viewers from all around the world who watch the whole thing, and that's a very big selling point for, I guess, the parent group that I work for, that they spend all this money on the infrastructure, on the services, on the hardware, that there are people using the service, which makes it worth their while to continue investing in it. And we also use Adobe Connect for, and the same thing for classroom capture. All our 80 or 90 classes, we can class capture from any one of them. We have about a dozen Macrines and a dozen media sites, but they're only installed where people ask them to. So whenever a faculty member comes and says, we want to capture in this room, we will move unused devices into that room.
Okay. Todd?
So I mentioned that we have these central services, but we don't mandate that people use them. So an important measure of success, is are they being used? Are they growing?
Right.
And I do have a slide on Duke Capture. I'm not sure if you can call that one up. That's probably our most mature service. That's been something I've been working with since I got to Duke in 2006. And it's scaled up to about 19 different schools and departments use it. But as I said, about 95 classrooms or so have hardware installed. We've done over 30,000 recordings, 45,000 something hours recorded. The views number, actually, about 200,000 views. We've pared that down. We really work closely with these analytics and try to make them meaningful. So Those numbers were a lot bigger before, and then we developed some SQL queries to try to limit it to views that were just greater than 1 minute, because we didn't feel like somebody just clicking on a course lecture for less than a minute is really a meaningful engagement with that material. So that's a more accurate reflection of the usage. And then we've got about 40 terabytes of media generated, and this is in 4 years of using Panopto, and I think the numbers that we had with the Lectopia Echo 360 combination were not quite that high, but pretty comparable. So this is a service that is in wide use across campus, and it's being used because it's a really good service. Panopto is a really competitive product. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with industry standard tools out there, but it really compares well feature by feature. They've got really cool new stuff around indexing and search that's just come out that kind of keeps them competitive. So people like it, and it's something that's considered important, and I think the numbers are what we use to determine. And I should mention YouTube is also highly successful at Duke, just again for that kind of opposite, public content, promotional materials, kind of showcasing your school or department and trying to get eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
Chris, can I add one thing, if you don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I should also add is that, I'm not sure if this is appropriate for this crowd, but my department, we're also in charge of actually creating not just lecture capture and events, but actually creating new content, like marketing campaigns and videos. So another measure of ROI for us, I should say, I'm not sure if it's appropriate for this, is can we create a meaningful video that will gain either donors or outreach for the school to digital video and not have to outsource it. So by sake of example, when we got a naming gift, we spent literally $25,000, before I came on board, $25,000 to get an outside production company in LA to create a 3-minute video. $25,000, that's a lot. Now that I'm on board, we just did one, same quality, same level of viewership, same level of production quality and outreach, and we did it for $5,000. Now granted, I'm on staff, so my salary is subsidized, but because the question is, I actually had to outsource some composing, some stock photography, some stock graphics. So I also am in charge of creating narrative content, I should say, to be fair.
Okay, cool. Thanks. By the way, this is meant to be interactive, and you've all been nice and quiet, but if you do have questions, please raise your hand and we'll just interject them. I wanted to make sure we did get through the workflows and the architecture diagrams first, but if you have questions, please just holler out and we'll go ahead and answer those, but otherwise I'll keep asking questions. Go ahead. What kind of asset management systems do you use?
To be honest, unfortunately, I'm at that weird stage. We're at the weird stage where the cost return on the DAM is not really very effective for us. So realistically, what we're doing is we just have a Drobo, a network attached Drobo. We have all of our video files on that. It's not really digital asset management in the traditional form. You can't search it. There's no metadata. Our media site does have a good searching tool, but in terms of the stuff we create internally and that we manage, it's just a Drobo that we have Avid projects that link to it. And then for long-term or offline archival storage, we will either we'll do two things. We'll mirror it to, because like you said, you have copies in IT. We'll put it on hard drives, and we'll also offload to. We have the Show Institute on campus, which does Holocaust survival stories, and they have a huge byte sector JPEG backup, JPEG 2000 backup of all videos, so we'll offload there. But we don't really have a DAM, unfortunately. I've tried to push it through. I've asked other departments to create one, but because USC is very decentralized, it's kind of hard to do. And the university's had several talks to do it high level, but without other departments buying in, it's not realistic.
Right. And for anyone who doesn't know, can you define what a Drobo is?
Oh, I'm sorry. A Drobo is just a network attached storage device. It's just a device about this big. It can sit in your network or it can sit direct attached to a machine. The great advantage of the Drobo is that it takes different size hard drives. So if you have a 4 terabyte hard drive, a 2 terabyte hard drive, a 1 terabyte, stick it all in, and through some voodoo magic, it'll create a redundant array. So that leverages all your hard drives and still have redundancy. So I can lose up to a hard drive at one time without losing any data, and use different size hard drives. And if one fills up, pop it out, put a new one in, and basically that. So it gives me the flexibility of having a redundant array where I have redundancy capabilities until I back it up for offline long-term storage. But I'm not hard drive dependent, or I'm platform agnostic to it. If you Mac, PC, Windows, Linux, whatever you want.
Nice. Okay. Anyone else want to talk about their management?
For Berkeley, we have several different asset managements and content management systems. In my area, I developed a web content management system, an asset management system on an open source framework called Symphony that synchronizes with the library information library system. And we use Moodle as our learning management system right now that also has Kaltura as an asset management system. And we just recently partnered with a digital asset management system called Widen that we're starting to use as a backbone for more campus-wide content. Widen Collective, I believe.
W-I-D-E-N?
Yeah.
Widen Collective, okay.
So there's kind of a bunch of them, and we're trying to work how to get all that metadata to synchronize back and forth, which is, again, library data.
Right.
You know.
Okay, Todd?
We're kind of in the same boat as USC. We've kind of looked at those tools and ultimately decided that, number one, they're pretty expensive and we have to have our requirements in order, and I think there are a number of different projects on campus that could conceivably feed into that. One of them is we do some stuff with Coursera. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. Yeah. And some of the content that we're using there would potentially be a good use case for that. We're just kind of putting that on network attached storage right now and have kind of menial processes for accessing it by faculty. But yeah, ultimately we're not at a point where we have decided we want to take the plunge.
Okay.
Yeah, same story where we don't have an asset management system in place. We're looking at them because the directive from up high is coming that you guys should find an asset management system because more and more people there's a lot of user-generated content that needs to get uploaded somewhere, and it can't just go into a black hole where the only person who knows is the person who sent you the file and you know what the structure is. There's no metadata attached, there's no way to search it. So right now everything goes into this big directory and there's no way to search it. So,
okay.
Oh, media side does have searching capabilities, but that's not quite asset management.
Okay, other questions before I go on? BJ, go ahead.
So what kind of issues do you face when you are integrating the learning management systems with one of your streaming tools like Kaltura, you're using Lambda, something like that, and do you see a lot of issues there or they just go?
Let me repeat the question just so everyone hears it. When you're integrating your asset, was the question, do you see problems or with asset management, integrating your asset management system into your video workflow?
For us, no. Our LMS is Blackboard for the campus, and my assets tend to be either similar to you do the encoded movies or clips that professors want to use, or full-scale videos or other events or whatever. So if it's a public-facing asset, then I just do a YouTube embed code in LMS and it picks it right up. And if it's a private-facing asset, we don't have the full infrastructure you do of having the protected browser server, but what we do is we just use Vimeo, and we password protect it where it can only be streamed from a star.usc.edu address, and I just embed that way. I have, just like them, however, given up on trying to upload anything directly into LMS. If the LMS needs it, it will be from an outside source, whether that be MediaSite, which also has an embed code for LMS, Vimeo or YouTube, whatever. The one thing we have not tried to integrate, though, is we don't really do, you need a USC NetID, which is also Shibboleth, to get into the LMS, but we don't actually try to authenticate the SHIB against the assets. We just use the USC IU as the breakaway point. If it's protected, you can't get to unless you're a USCDU, and it's public, it's public facing. So we've had no issues. We do have a media site server that we run independently of the LMS, but 9 times out of 10, the lecture capture we do, the professors just end up putting it right back in the LMS system to watch in the class environment rather than having the students go to different sites, even though we do a separate media site protected system. So.
At Berkeley, it's a challenge. We use Kaltura for more of the multimedia assets that link with the LMS because it's partnered very well. We use Moodle Rooms as a vendor to manage our Moodle instance. And Kaltura has, since Moodle is open source, Kaltura developed a modular plugin to be able to integrate very well with it. On the flip side, we do have a lot of courses centered around students creating multimedia content of music and audio where they have to submit back to the course. And I don't know that there's a facility necessarily to ingest and instantly put it right through to Kaltura without going through a review process, which is hampering for faculty if they need to do a quick review of something. So it goes back into Moodle. So now we have 2 asset management systems. For The online reserve system that I manage, I've worked with the Moodle administrator, the LMS manager, I should say, so that we can synchronously, I guess is the way to put it, allow the students in the Moodle Rooms instance to go back and forth between the two structures very easily, as opposed to embedding or loading a module. It's more linked around using our authentication system so that they can go back and forth with ease and use it that way. But it's always a challenge that we're always in constant review, trying to see what's the best and better way to do it.
So we're using Sakai currently, and as I mentioned, we've got both Kaltura and Warpwire that both have integrations with Sakai. And again, that's based on a standard called LTI, which I think stands for Learning Tools Interoperability. But anyway, it's a standard. If you have a tool that can function in your LMS that uses that, it makes it remarkably easy for somebody to integrate with that. So I'd recommend, finding something that does that if you're having issues. And it was actually really easy for Warpwire to get that part of it set up. So.
Great. Okay.
If it's protected content, it's going in the LMS, and you can't get to it unless you authenticate into the LMS. So if it's non-protected content, special events, commencements, they're going on the main campus website, so we don't need to worry about any authentication issues. But we haven't had any problems. But then again, we haven't grown so big that we might run into. Just because we don't have them doesn't mean they don't exist.
Right.
Put it another way.
Are there, I guess, you mentioned a couple, and especially with your point about LTI, Todd, it brings up another question is, are there best practices that as you've been deploying these streaming workflows, you've seen that might be useful for other folks who are listening in today?
Doing workflows, you said?
Yeah, any part of what you've done, but I'm thinking, as you've built out these streaming workflows, are there things that you've learned where you go, oh, that would be it would have been easier if I'd known that at the start, or this is a great way, this is one thing that has worked really well for us and other people should follow these practices as well?
For us, I think there's three main takeaways. One would be, I think these guys have also done it too, portability. That whole laptop solution I showed earlier, it's portable, it's in a Pelican case, locked down, we can go anywhere with it. Portability is key. Having a situation where we said, oh, we can't do it in that room because it's not set up with the cameras and the mics was not really an effective excuse. So portability, I think, is one. Okay. Two, I think knowing the limitations of what you can do, like Wirecast is great with having multiple streams and having desktop, like we can have it has a piece of software called Desktop Presenter. You can put on a machine and capture the PowerPoint from that machine, kind of like a media site. You can integrate multiple cameras, use the cube, but know the limitations of your hardware. That's why I went to the cube to keep stuff off the processor, to bring stuff in through other streams. And I think I talked to Chris on this phone when we were talking at the conference is, lots of times, I don't know about for these guys, but for us, because we're brought into live stream, it's automatically assumed that we can also do the AV for the room. And we have to very quickly tell people we're the streaming vendor, we're not the AV vendor for the room. So but sometimes we walk into a room where there's just no in-room amplification. They haven't planned for in-room amplification, so there's no mic, there's no soundboard to pop into. So our system had to be versatile enough to be able to plug into a soundboard, get an XLR feed into our camera, which is fed to our capture card, to our laptop to get the room from a professional sound vendor, and also to be a fully professional video shop where we have lavaliers and handheld mics we can use to mic presenters like we are here and do our own video just for the stream.
So I'm curious now, because we're in a room that obviously has cameras, audio, and recording going on. Are you all I'm going to ask the back of the room, are you guys actually all with the same firm or different firms? Different firms, okay.
So, and that's pretty common we run into. So,
thank you.
We just haven't had that capability. That's been our price point. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, and that last addition to add on about doing the HT master, that was a big learn for us. Because otherwise, if we didn't record the HD switch master in full ProRes, Avid HD codec, whatever we want to do, and something got screwed up in the stream, like dead space or a slide, whatever, downloading the 1 or 2 megabit flash file from Ustream to edit with was just pathetic and not really worthwhile. We have to uncompress it, put in something, fix it, recompress it, send and upload, right. Or we have to go back to the camera ISOs and rebuild the switched event, because the camera, of course we record back in the camera SD cards for backup, but then we have to take all the camera ISOs, dump them into a timeline, put the PowerPoints, whatever, back in the lower thirds and recreate the whole event. So for us, a big takeaway was to be able to take the HD switch master of the event, in full editing resolution. So that way we had a multi-gigabyte file that was the entire event. We just had to go in there and change whatever was necessary, whatever was not working, and then we could just quickly transcode to H.264 and upload it right to YouTube rather than have to try to play with that flash file or the camera ISOs. That was a big learn for us.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to ask you guys, just based on time and being conscious that Jose asked us to be conscious of time, if you guys could share best practices in about a minute each, that'd be great.
For me, the best practice is always about know and define your expectations and the expectations of those that you'll be collaborating with. Because it's really hard to walk into a room kind of blindsided by, oh, I thought, insert anything. And it never ends well. So just really understand your expectations and define them and communicate that with those you collaborate with.
Okay, great, thanks. Todd?
I would say that leveraging the resources unique to your institution is really important. It's been good for us at Duke. One thing that's allowed us to do things like Duke Capture and then also manage other projects is to tie into resources in the schools and departments. You know, they have technical people at the People School of Business who have really great multimedia teams, and so we work with them and delegate a big portion of the process of managing Duke Capture to them, and so that allows me and my group to free up time to explore other surfaces and be more innovative. And so I think that, along with physical resources too. We've got really great storage and network resources at Duke, so we don't feel like we need a company for streaming with a CDN and a hosting model. So we feel like we can use our own storage and infrastructure for streaming.
Great, okay. Sidney?
The expectations part is probably the most important on campus because for liability laws, outside vendors can't come work on campus unless they're insured and signed off by campus leadership. So for most events, it's coming to my group, which is internal. Now, people expect a full-on studio production for the kind of money they pay us, which is not a whole lot of money. So we need, again, it's a matter of definitions. We let them know what exactly we can do and what we cannot do up front. Then they can decide whether they want to go forward or not. Most of the time they say, yes, we want to go forward anyway, because they put out the commitment that we're going to stream this event on Tuesday, and it's in the newsletter, it's on the campus website, so it's going to happen. And then backup.
Yep.
Record on camera for every event. So I didn't go through on my live workflow. We're using Flash Media Live Encoder and a video switcher. So in addition to being recorded on the local machine that's doing the encoding, it's also being cached on Edgecast, which is our CDN, and it's also being recorded on the camera. As soon as I dump the video onto my edit station, I run a time machine backup because I do so many recordings, I run out of space, the SD card gets wiped, sometime, somewhere, somebody's gonna, 3 or 4 months down the line, somebody's gonna come to me and say, that keynote, I need the extract of the keynote speaker for transcription. So I have to have a backup for that. So backup, expectations, and backup again.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, that is it as far as time goes. If you have questions after the session, please come up and ask our panelists. I'm sure they can hang around for a few minutes to answer those. A big thanks to our panelists who came, shared their architecture diagrams and their insights with us. So thank you very much for coming out and spending the time with us on that. And thanks to all of you for attending today. And let us know if you have any other questions after the session.